This is VOA Africa.
Hello, I'm Esther Githui-Ewart. It's Thursday, December 3rd. This is Africa 54. Due to the global outbreak of COVID-19, Voice of America is taking every necessary precaution to safeguard its employees. So our broadcast will look a little different today and in the near future as we, out of an abundance of caution, reduce our staffing at VOA headquarters here in Washington. We're working to help keep you informed about what's going on, and we appreciate you staying with us on Africa 54. First, some positive developments in the Horn of Africa. Ethiopia and the United Nations agreed on Wednesday to allow aid into the northeastern region of Tigray, according to two UN officials. UN Humanitarian Coordination Agency OCHA said the deal would ensure that humanitarians will have unimpeded, sustained and secure access to areas under the control of the federal government in the Tigray region. Ethiopian government spokesman Redwan Hussein confirmed the agreement but gave no further details. Federal troops have been battling the Tigray People's Liberation Front and have captured the regional capital Mekelle. The month of war is believed to have killed thousands of combatants and civilians displaced, many within Tigray, and forced more than 45,000 refugees to flee into Sudan. Meanwhile, thousands of Ethiopians who fled the fighting in Tigray to camps in Sudan face a new threat, a COVID-19 outbreak. Naba Mohideen reports from Al-Qadarif, Sudan.
Over the past month, more than 40,000 Ethiopians have fled clashes in Tigray to camps in eastern Sudan. Those arriving are placed in 3 camps in the cities of Qadarif and Kassala. 32-year-old Isfai Ali and his pregnant wife fled Humera to get away from the fighting, but now face a COVID-19 outbreak in this camp.
ተማሰይት ሑመራ ቅድም ኮሮና ቫይረስ ተራእዩ ዝነበረ እዩ መንግስቱን ምቁጻሪ ምኩር ነይሩ ድሕር ብዝተፈጠረ
In Humera, some cases with coronavirus were discovered, but the government controlled it. Because of the internal conflict, I fled to Sudan, but I'm so worried about the spread of COVID-19 here in the camp due to the living conditions, room, and shortage of water.
Social distancing is difficult in the camp, where at least 6 refugees stay in each small tent or room. Health workers warn refugees of the coronavirus risk and teach them methods to prevent the spread of the virus. Isolation centers are also being built.
The high population and the big number of refugees represent a risk factor for the spread of the virus. There is a possibility that some of the suspected cases fled isolation centers in the war zone and came to the camps.
A second wave of COVID-19 is sweeping across Sudan, which reports at least 17,000 registered cases. The government has shut down universities and schools and is considering whether to impose more restrictions. The UN Refugee Agency is calling for more international aid to deal with the crisis. Refugees are trying to adjust, constructing small markets inside the camps and close to the hosting villages. Meanwhile, the Sudanese government is setting up a new refugee camp 250 kilometers from Khartoum to help ease overcrowding in the existing camps. Naba Mohideen for VOA News, Rakuba Camp, Al-Qadarif.
Britain has approved the use of the coronavirus vaccine made by Pfizer and plans to begin inoculations in the coming days. It represents a significant milestone in the battle against the pandemic, but challenges remain. Henry Ridgwell reports.
Britain says it plans to start injecting people with the Pfizer-BioNTech vaccine as early as next week after the MHRA, the body that regulates medicines, gave its safety approval Tuesday.
It's been done using a process known as a rolling review. A rolling review can be used to complete the assessment of a promising medicine or a vaccine in a situation where time is of the essence, in the shortest time possible. But, and this is a very important point indeed, that doesn't mean that any corners have been cut, none at all.
Pfizer is expected to deliver 800,000 doses to Britain in the coming days. The government has so far ordered 40 million doses. enough to vaccinate 20 million people. Nursing home residents will be the first in line, alongside frontline healthcare workers. The elderly and clinically vulnerable will be next. Healthy adults will likely have to wait several months.
We don't yet know whether this vaccine only prevents disease, i.e. getting sick, or whether it will also prevent people from contracting the virus and passing it on to people.
There are obstacles ahead, not least convincing a sceptical public.
There's so much that we don't know about, and there hasn't been enough trials, there hasn't been enough time to even find out if these vaccines are safe.
Definitely, I think myself and my family will be taking it because we need to get back to normal. I've had enough.
Several other developed nations have also ordered millions of doses of the Pfizer-BioNTech vaccine. But because the Pfizer vaccine needs to be stored at minus 70 degrees Celsius for poorer countries, such as here in Malawi, that is currently impossible.
The kind of equipment that many countries have, including Malawi, it's not that ultra-cold chain kind of equipment. So as we're doing our assessment, we'll look at that. But however, we still don't know what vaccine is going to come into the country.
2 other vaccines produced by Moderna and AstraZeneca have also reported successful early results and could be approved this month in North America and Europe.
By spring, I think we will be well on our way to returning to normal. I don't expect we'll be quite there by then, but we'll be on our way. And I think the rest of the world can expect to see other vaccines which might be more useful, perhaps don't need the cold chain that this vaccine requires.
The first human cases of the coronavirus were identified in Wuhan, China, in December 2019. In less than 12 months, several new vaccines have been developed at unprecedented speed. The world may now be at a turning point in the pandemic. Henry Ridgwell for VOA News, London.
Ghana has been lauded for its COVID-19 response and fairly low death toll of 323 people. However, health experts worry the virus could be spread at campaign rallies for next week's election. Stacey Knott reports from Accra.
Ghana's health service recently estimated that over 80% of Ghanaians are not wearing face masks, a drastic drop from previous compliance levels. Last month, President Nana Akufo-Addo urged Ghanaians to put on the masks during rallies for the December 7 election. But at campaign events across the nation, for both Akufo-Addo's New Patriotic Party and the opposition National Democratic Congress, supporters are flouting the rules.
Some people are not wearing the nose mask, but they don't listen to their... seriously. They don't listen to their president, because president talks that everybody must wear the nose mask first.
Some of Ghana's parties are taking precautions, holding events outdoors or online. Some hold health walks instead of traditional rallies. However, public health experts say it is not enough of a precaution to campaign outside if other rules are ignored.
Yes, they're outdoors, so they're less risky than they would be if they were indoors, but that doesn't mean they're safe. And by virtue of that fact, by virtue of the fact that it's not a zero-risk scenario, the more of those that happen with more acute conditions around mask wearing, distancing, and ventilation, we would expect to see some marginal contribution to the infection rate.
Kwache says the false belief that COVID-19 usually doesn't have a major impact on health has led some Ghanaians to take more risks. Ghanaian sports journalist Gary L. Smith is trying to spread the word that for many who survive the virus, there can be long-term effects. He was infected with COVID-19 while reporting on it and documented his recovery.
If your inclination is that you have COVID for 14, 21 days, and after that you'll be fine, but you get to know the realities that, as in my case, I had headaches constantly for 2 months. I could not take 10-minute walks because after 5 minutes I was completely blown away. I was completely finished.
Despite his efforts to raise awareness of COVID-19's effects, Al Smith says it's been a struggle to get Ghanaians to take the virus seriously, especially as the election has taken centre stage. Stacey Knott for VOA News, Accra.
Ghanaians head to the polls on Monday, December 7th. A new survey conducted by Ghana Center for Democratic Development, CDD Ghana, shows that the public has confidence in the ability of the Electoral Commission to organize a transparent poll, despite initial suspicions by opposition groups. To learn more about the study, VOA's Peter Clotty sat down with Dr. Kojo Asante, Director of Advocacy and Policy Engagement at the Ghana Center for Democratic Development.
So if you take the election stakeholders like the Electoral Commission, the security agencies and so on, I think the attitudes of Ghanaians generally was positive. And I think that is significant to note because considering the kind of challenges the Electoral Commission had confronted when it decided to completely compile a new register. So coming out of it with a positive, sort of rating from the public, I think was a booster for them.
How enthusiastic are they? What about the issue of comporting themselves at the polls? Because some people are expressing concern that there could be violence. Others are saying Ghanaians have been known to be peaceful during elections. But what are the expectations about how peaceful and stable the atmosphere will be during the election process?
In terms of the readiness to participate, I think 9-10 say they would probably vote or they will vote on election day. And that is very high. The question is whether or not they would turn up on election day. But that shows that it's quite positive. I think on the violence side and the security issues, there are concerns. There are obviously concerns with vigilantism. So there's a statistic that I think was worrying, for instance. 71% of those surveyed say that they will feel more comfortable with armed security guards, widespread.
So let me ask you about the policies of these major political parties. How are people responding to their policies, and will people vote on their policies based on your findings?
There's an interesting flip in terms of, I think, the two major parties. If you take their 2016 manifesto, so you take the 2016 manifesto of the MPP, it was about jobs and all of that. And then the NDC was about sort of, continuing, stabilizing and continuing the work that has already been started. And basically there's been a flip. So now if you still look at the NDC manifesto, is about jobs and so on. And then the MPP is now wanting the stability and the continuation and so on. So in a way, what it does tell us is that the issues haven't changed. And if you look at their policy priorities, the top three, infrastructure or employment, I think it's either health or education is one of the other ones. So those issues still, at least the top two, still continue to be an issue for citizens.
I've heard some people say that the Electoral Commission has, organized this election very well. Others are saying they are displeased with some of the things that have happened in the run-up to the election. But how comfortable are people, the public, about how the Electoral Commission will organize this upcoming election, and how comfortable are the political parties participating in this election?
I think at the popular level, from the pre-election survey, it's very clear that the trust ratings, the confidence is high, about 67% rated, quite highly. So they are seen to have, I think every electoral activity that they implement well, like just the recent presidential voting. The machines perform well, big issues with names and people turning up and so on, no incidents. That then makes them even stronger in terms of getting more confidence, and the public also trusting them that they will deliver on election day. So I think every activity they do and they do it well would help them.
That was VOA's Peter Clotty speaking to Dr. Kojo Asante, Director of Advocacy and Policy Engagement at the Ghana Center for Democratic Development in Ghana. We're excited to hear what you think about Africa 54 and the stories we cover. Join the discussion on Facebook. The address is Africa 54. We're also streaming our broadcast live on Facebook. Please watch and share our show with your friends. Also check out our headlines 24/7 on voaafrica.com. Still to come, art therapy for sexual assault survivors turns into a thriving business that helps more women. We'll be right back.
Is about more than just sitting here and talking about women's issues. It's about listening to them
and bringing their opinions to the table and making sure their voices are heard.
Because our lived experiences, our stories, and our voices will help shape the next generation.
Welcome back to Africa 54. U.S. President Donald Trump's claims of election fraud has put doubt in the minds of many Republicans. One state that has seen recount after the election is Georgia, a state that has not voted for a Democrat as president since 1992. VOA's Elizabeth Lee shows the diversity of opinions among Republicans on the outcome of the presidential election.
The city of Atlanta, with 500,000 people, is the largest city in Georgia. Brandon Nivens moved here from San Francisco 4 years ago, working in the tech industry, and sees Atlanta as a more affordable land of opportunity.
Being a minority and also being, a gay man, I've never felt attacked here. I've never felt that I've been judged.
Nivens, who voted for former President Barack Obama, decided to vote for Trump 4 years ago and again in 2020.
I chose Trump because he was the most outspoken Republican. There's a huge generation or group of people in this country that are being left behind. And that really resonated with me. He was on The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air.
It's the Donald! Oh my God!
He was on all these, I would say, Black American shows. And so I never saw the side that was being portrayed now as, the uber racist.
When it comes to the election outcome,
if there's something there, expose it. If not, you need to move on.
Megan Smith, a teacher from the suburbs, feels more strongly about the election outcome.
I do believe there is fraud in this election. I think there is fraud in every election, but I think that it was more rampant in this election than in previous times, and I believe that it's very important that we get to the bottom of that, because without having a free and fair election, we really don't have much to stand on as Americans.
Those at this meeting of young Republicans agree they are not a monolithic group when it comes to views on issues or the election.
There's plenty of people who have different opinions. We're not all going down the same road. Honestly, I would say the party's a little bit divided on this election. I would say you see, half the people are adamant that this election has been stolen. Half the people, I would say, are adamant that, this is the outcome that happened.
The close presidential race in Georgia reflects the changing state of politics, with people from other parts of the U.S. moving to Georgia, creating more political diversity. Differing views on Trump among Republicans is another factor that caused the president to not do as well as expected in Georgia, says political scientist Scott Buchanan.
But there were Republicans who nonetheless were either voting for Biden or they just weren't voting for president.
because otherwise Republicans would not have been doing as well as they did down-ticket.
Buchanan says, while it is uncertain what the Republican Party will look like in 4 years.
Does Donald Trump run again? I would not put it past him.
Niven says he would consider voting for Trump again.
If there's no other good candidate on the Republican side, yeah, I definitely would. I mean, I would say the Trump America, it's been pretty fun. It's kept you guessing. But also at the same time, I mean, I think it's time for others in the Republican Party to maybe stand up.
Whether the next presidential race in Georgia is as close as this one may depend on who is on the ballot. Elizabeth Lee, VOA News.
With COVID-19 still out of control, low-income families in the United States are bracing for a cold and uneasy winter. VOA's Veronica Valderas Iglesias reports.
Thank you. Picking up donations at the Salvation Army and other charity organizations has become essential for Erica Sanchez, a cash-poor mother of 3 in Washington, D.C.
Right now, it's helping us a lot because we don't have means to buy jackets, boots, so we come here and they give them to us.
The Mexican-born prep cook was laid off when the restaurant she used to work at closed thanks to COVID-19. She found part-time work collecting trash at an office building, but can barely make ends meet.
I used to earn $13 an hour in my day job. Now I earn $16.10 an hour, but only work 4 hours, so I can feel the difference.
The Salvation Army's spokesman, Major Shrikant Nagar, said that with new unemployment claims nearing 800,000 a week, community needs are surging.
We are a rich country, but people is here also in the United States don't have food, don't have place to go out of pandemic because no job is available and people is suffering right now.
Hit with income cuts, many Americans aren't paying their utility bills. The piled-up debt is at $24 billion, say energy aid organizations. Customers who can't get relief risk getting cut off in the cold winter. That has charities distributing winter coats in high gear. But they too are struggling against the pandemic.
The largest percentage of coat drives that happen every year are employee engagement coat drives. So many companies are still working remotely. So right now, we are down by 56% of coat drives that were happening at this time last year.
I have to show you one more thing. It's not only warm apparel that's in need, says Jackie Hortzman-Didio, whose nonprofit provides free education to preschool kids in Alexandria, Virginia.
Usually we would serve about 15% of families with things like rental assistance or different opportunities to access food and supplies and internet. But now we see that just growing up so much that so many people need those additional services.
And if the cold weather worsens the health crisis, as some scientists expect, there could be new layoffs. That worries parents like Esau Munoz, who works as a chef.
The truth is that the restaurant's numbers are down. People don't want to go out, especially now that we again have to close at 8 p.m. At 9, we stopped selling alcohol, so it's had a very negative impact.
Until the virus is under control, he doesn't expect the restrictions to end. Munoz is bracing for a long and uneasy winter season. Veronica Valderas Iglesias for VOA News, Washington.
Art therapy can be part of walking through past trauma. Maxim Moskalkov tells the story of sexual assault survivors who have turned therapy into a thriving business that also helps other women survivors.
Cousins Ellie Clogerty and Kristen Malinovsky grew up in Northern Virginia, and both headed to Virginia Tech to get a degree in neurobiology. The young women had a lot in common. One of the big things, both say they are survivors of campus sexual assault. As part of their recovery, the two launched a jewelry line called Camaria.
When I started designing jewelry, I went from an idea of something that wasn't in existence yet, and you could just find a way to bring it to life.
The young women started studying jewelry making in New York and traveled the world to learn different jewelry styles. A year after Kamaria was launched, Clougherty and Malinowski started a non-profit called Restore Dignity that offers financial help to the victims of campus sexual assault. 10% of Kamaria's proceeds go to the Restore Dignity.
You would be surprised to know that we have had applications from students who are having their diplomas held until they pay their student health care costs, and those student health care costs were directly attributed to sexual assault.
Many jewelry pieces that Clougherty and Malinowski make are asymmetrical. The cousins say they are meant to show beauty in imperfection.
It's so meaningful, and it's easy to attach symbology to something so small.
One of our signature pieces is the butterfly necklace, and the butterfly represents hope and transformation, which is a good reminder for survivors.
The young women believe the COVID pandemic has taught people to be more empathetic towards each other. They say these times are forcing many people to lead very isolated lives, like the ones sexual assault victims often lead.
Kamaria means moonlight in Swahili, so the idea is, like the moon, even when you're surrounded by darkness, you reflect light just because you exist.
We're going to support
Maxim Moskalkov for VOA News, Washington.
In the Middle East, thousands of Iraqi Kurdish federal employees protested unpaid salaries in Iraq's northeastern city of Sulaymaniyah this week. VOA's Ribas Majid reports in this piece narrated by Bejan Hamdard.
Federal employees here in Sulaymaniyah say that they have been paid a total of 4 months in 2020. But just who's responsible, the Iraqi Kurdistan regional government or the capital, Baghdad, isn't quite clear. Traditionally, all Iraqi local governorates are funded by Baghdad, but the Kurdistan Regional Government, or KRG, decided to sell its oil independently years ago. In retaliation, Baghdad stopped funding the region. And since oil prices have dropped, Kurdistan government leaders are in financial crisis. And federal employees aren't getting paid.
I have no idea when the salaries will be distributed. I have no idea which salaries I have received.
This government lacks the ability to rule. It cannot administrate the life of the 5 million citizens of the region. After 29 years of ruling, the crises increase each year.
Today's protest was primarily comprised of teachers. However, social workers alongside local shopkeepers who have also been affected participated as well. Small demonstrations by doctors, nurses, and other professionals have also taken place in the past months.
We are teachers. We are asking for our own rights, the rights they have taken away from us. The people here are all desperate.
The protests may be having an effect. Kurdistan Regional Government spokesperson Jutsier Ardel announced that a new batch of salaries is being distributed this week. For Ribas Majid in Sulaymaniyah, Iraq, Bejan Hamdard, VOA News.
And that's our show for today. Be sure to watch Africa 54 on our website at voaafrica.com. From all of us here in Washington, we thank you for watching.